in here. Okay, I forgot to do two major parts of the binding on the facings. So before I change the thread and get started with this video of putting the pieces together of the jacket, I need to put that on first. So that's what we're going to do. Let's get started putting this together. This is already the third vlog on the process of putting my unlined peaked collar jacket together with the silk brocade, and this is where it gets a little tricky. I'm a little apprehensive. It's been a while since I've worked with something like this with a jacket and this fabric. It's going to be a little tricky. But everything is prepared, and that's the good part. All the pieces have been already bound on the edges. There's going to be a lot more that has to be with the binding, but most of the main pieces are there. And I started to put the pieces together, the jacket together. You know, now that you have the binding there, you don't have the notches to rely on, so you kind of have to know which pieces go with what. So, you know, look at your pattern pieces when you're doing this so you can know. And of course the center back I just started to put together. It's going to be a 1/2 inch seam allowance, so it'll be really sewn in pretty much where those pins are and then pressed open. This is the back vent, so I'm only going to go to this point here, and then I started to get the side back together and then the side seams together. I'm just pinning it with silk pins because that's the only type of pins you want. You want the finest silk pins. A lot of these are bent so that they're not gonna snag the fabric. The side back piece, which should be this piece here, and that is right. I'm going to make it match on top. If there's any discrepancies, I'll keep that for the hem because we can always shave it off the hem. Just going to put some pins. Main pieces of the jacket here now. I want to go ahead and sew those first before I tackle anything else. Change the foot because I think it's pushing against the binding. Narrow foot. It is a 1/2 inch, but it's a little off here, so I want to start over. Just want as much control as possible. So I'm going to take that seam out. You want these edges kissing. So the filming cut off in the middle of my stream because there wasn't enough card space. So I freed up a little bit of the card space and we're back. And I realized that the undercollar was not cut on the bias. So I want to recut that parallel to that selvage, and it is. And we're going to go ahead and cut this piece out. I'm not going to completely back it with interfacing, but I think what I'm going to do is use interfacing strip that I was using before so that at least the edges will be nice and crisp. And I'm going to steam that on now, and then we'll proceed. I didn't press the seams out yet. I just pinned it at the shoulder just to see it on the form because I love to see it on as I work on the project. So let's go and press all of these seam allowances open that I just sewed in. I'm going to use the sleeve hand underneath. And I tested a portion here. I'm just going to use the tip of my iron to press it. I'm not going to flatten it because I don't want indentation of the binding. So just with the tip, opening up that seam. Then I use a damp handkerchief, and I'm going to go just on the seam line too, pretty delicately. Don't want to get any indentation if I can help it. To be extra careful with the pressing, I'm going to actually cut out some of this hard brown paper to put in between those seam allowance lines. I'm just cutting a strip of about 1 inch wide. I'll cut 2 of them. So I'm going to take the paper and put it underneath the seam allowance on both sides. This way, when I press, you won't get the indentation, but I'll still be able to get a nice press on the other side. I'm going to put the pins this way on the shoulder and see if I can keep that lined up better when I'm doing the seams. I'm not a fan of putting pins in at all when you're sewing on an industrial machine, but it looks like it worked out well. So I'm going to take these off, press these open, and I'll get on the table. So I think it's time to tackle the collar and the lapel. I want to do that first before we do the sleeves. So, how am I going to approach this? Well, I have the undercollar with the bias cut piece and the stay tape interfacing around the edge, and then I have the top collar on the straight grain with full amount of the lightweight interfacing. So I think the first step would be to sew the outer part of the collar here, down, and here, and flip it over. Keep in mind, on this pattern, I put 1/2 inch seam allowance everywhere so it wasn't confusing. In professional patterns, it would be like 1/4 inch in certain areas, but I just kept it simple, so it's 1/2 inch seam allowance. We're going to go ahead and do that, and I'll be right back. So I was stitching on the biased side, and it's a no-no, and I should know better than that, because when you stitch on that side, it'll just encourage it to give. So that bias part should be underneath when you're sewing, and then I'm going to be sewing on this side. So I'm going to repin it and try that again. Cutting the one layer very close. Then I'm going to cut the other part a little further away. Turn it and gently work on these corners. Let's get to the iron. I'm not understitching or backstitching because I don't want it to show, but I'm pushing it slightly less on the undercollar. Okay, so let's get this out of the way. Get the lapels. It figure out how we're going to do this. So when I sewed the muslin, I actually sewed it reverse. I sewed it, but I put the bias part on top, which I probably should have done as well on this one because it just lies better. But I sewed it on the wrong side of the jacket, and then I thought to hand sew it on the right side because you're not going to see this part here. It's going to fold back, and then you get a smoother look here. So I think that might be the way I'm going to do the actual jacket as well. So first, I'm going to have to sew the facings on the lapel up until here. I think that's what I did. And then put it on to the neckline to this point, which is right here. And I'm going to have to fight with that curve. This fabric is absolutely not forgiving. I want to take all that little extra bits here off so I can get a nice accurate read of my seam line. Starting at this 1/2 inch point right here. Okay, so this point is going to be a pain because of the way the point is, but I'm going to try to do the best we can. I gradated the cutting, meaning one part is a little bit smaller than the other part on purpose. Then I'm going to just turn it. I like to manipulate it with my scissor. This is not a very pointy scissor, so hopefully it'll be good. I also do have a wooden stick, so maybe I'll start with that. And just really work that corner, or that point, I should say. It's about being patient with it. Used to be able to use a pin, but because it's a satin weave, it's a little tricky. Okay, mostly there. Then I'm going to press this flat and then press it this way as well. Let's get this collar on. So I cleaned this edge and I sewed the facing to the body of the front panel of the collar together. Seam that a little bit more so it's nice and flat. And this is the way I'm going to approach it. This is the bias part of the collar and this is the straight grain of the collar. I'm going to put the bias part of the collar right side to wrong side of the jacket and sew that together first all the way around. And then I'm going to flip it and turn this under and clean that out. And that'll be in the inside of the collar, so the collar will go this way and you'll have a nice clean sewn area here. I'm thinking that's the way I'm going to do it, so let's just see what happens. So the center to that back seam. And like I said, just to make it easier, I made that a 1/2 inch seam allowance. So it's going to get like that. Probably have to clip it in areas. And then this will be the point where it's going to turn, pivot. I'm going to have to clip and then sew this collar to the lapel at the 1/2 inch mark. Looks like that should be sewn in a little bit more, so I'll fix that first and sew that so it's a 1/2 inch. And then this is going to be this way. So it'll be clean on when this is flipped over to the front of the jacket. Okay, I think it works. Now let's go ahead and hand sew the part of the collar over here so that it'll be finished. I'm going to get some of this bulk out here. Okay, the reason why I'm doing it this way is because there's no lining to attach the other part of the collar. So because of that, and because I want this part to be sewn in, the one that you're going to actually see, machine stitched, and then I can do the hand stitching inside here. I guess you could do it by machine too, but I'm going to do it by hand. So that this is nice here, even though I've got a little bit of some other stitching I need to take out. Want to make sure it lays flat and doesn't twist. Okay. Okay guys, we got the collar on and I feel good about it, and I want to stop there because I just want to go into detail on every part of this jacket. So there's the collar, and we're getting closer to the finish line with this jacket. So I hope you love this video. Give it a thumbs up, tell your friends about it, subscribe, come on board, get the jacket pattern. We're almost done with it, and I'll see you next time. Thank you. Bye-bye. And I'm going to cut the other part a little further away.